3.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon everyone.
We are from group 3.
My name is Salsabila.
My name is Abtafia Eureka.
My name is Gusti, Sofia, Rizky,
And today we are going to talk about verbal and non-verbal language. First, I'm going to talk about the verbal one. So, in communication, there are two ways to convey the message. They are verbal and non-verbal communication. So, the communication or conversation between two people from different culture can cause misunderstanding. So, it have to reflect the culture influences the communication. And for the verbal patterns, people who used to talk more, interrupt more, talk more loudly and quickly are called high involvement. Russian, Italian, Greek, Spanish, South American, Arab, and African use this style in conversation because they like to convey what they thought or enjoy the argument. In the other hand, people who speak one at a time, use polite listening sounds, refrain from interrupting are called high considerations. And various communication style in Asian cultures use this. And then we move to directness in American English. So American English strongly emphasizes directness in verbal interaction. First, we have indicate impatience with avoiding issues. For example, don't beat around the bush. Let's get down to business or get to the point. And then the second one we have when information is requested from strangers or from people who are not well known to you. For example, excuse me, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Sure, go right ahead. What's the problem? And then we have the third one, we have offers and responses. Would you like some more dessert? No, thank you. It's delicious, but I've really had enough. Okay, why don't we leave the table and sit in the living room? So here you can see the host didn't repeat his or her question to the guest, and if you use direct in American English, if you say no thank you, it's delicious but I've had enough, that means you really are full and not hungry anymore. So the host think that you didn't need to eat anymore. So if you are not direct, for example, you are hungry but you are still saying things like no, I'm full, thank you, the host still will think that you are really not hungry anymore. And then the fourth one, we have the limits to the degree of directness a person is allowed to express, especially with people of higher status. So for example, we have a male student who was surprised at the reaction of his female teacher when he said, "What has happened to you? You look like you gained a lot of weight." When the teacher replied, "That's none of your business," he answered in an embarrassed tone, "I was just being honest." Then again, in American, people tend to not like when you are being too honest because it may come out as rude or inappropriate to the person you are talking. So be careful with that. And then next we have invitation. A frequently misunderstood area in American verbal interaction is that of extending, accepting, and refusing invitations. Now we move to the example. We have invitation 1 and 2. For invitation 1, so we have Kathy and Darlene. Kathy and Darlene, it was nice talking to you. I have to run to class.
Okay, maybe we can meet sometime soon.
Yeah, love to. Why don't you drop by my house sometime?
Great, gotta go. See you soon.
Okay, so from here we can see that Kathy is saying, "Why don't you drop by my house sometime?" And then Darlene just cut the conversation and end the conversation with, "Great, gotta go. see you later, or see you soon. In here, it is more like formalitas. Jadi di sini Darlene sama Katie itu tidak benar-benar si Darlene ini tidak benar-benar mau berkunjung ke rumahnya si Katie, dan Katie juga mengatakan itu hanya sebagai formalitas. Lalu invitation 2, before you leave for your vacation, can we get together and have lunch?
Sure, I love to.
How about Friday? Say about 12:30 at my place.
That sounds good. See you then.
Okay, so now from here we can see the difference. Invitation 2 is more like you have plan, and Katie sama Darlene di sini sudah membuat rencana yang sudah jelas bahwa mereka akan bertemu jam berapa, hari apa, dan ini bisa disebut sebagai invitation yang benar-benar meng-invite seseorang. Yeah. Then next will be delivered by Abtafia.
Okay, so next we have speaking and refrain from speaking. Many rules governing speech patterns are learned in childhood, and people grow up thinking that everyone has the same rule for speaking. People unconsciously think that others may use the same modes of expression as they do. For instance, not all languages use silence and interruption in the same way. Many Americans interpret silence in a conversation to mean disapproval, disagreement, or unsuccessful communication. They may want to say something to fill their silence, even though they have nothing to say. In conversation, Americans use ping pong style. It doesn't mean playing ping pong, but ping pong style here means that parable of the way to communicate actively and not become passive. For Americans, even 2 or 3 seconds of silence can become uncomfortable and they may feel awkward. On the other hand, most of Asians use bowling style in the conversation. It means Asians know exactly they have a turn to talk. When the person bowls carefully, the others may watch politely and do not leave their place in line or take turn out of order. No one else speaks until the ball has reached the bowling pins. On the contrary, Americans do not appreciate a person who dominates a conversation. Knowing when to take turns in conversation in another language can sometimes cause difficulty. You may think whether you should wait until someone has finished a sentence before contributing to a discussion, or can you break into the middle of someone's sentence. However, interrupting someone who is speaking is considered rude in United States. Even children are taught explicitly not to interrupt. In this case, Indonesians have the same interpretation as Americans, which consider it as something rude. And the next we have different ways of expressing common needs. Individuals in every culture have similar basic needs but express them differently. In daily life, we all initiate conversation, use formal and non-informal speech, give praise, express disagreement, seek information, and extend invitation. Some of the verbal patterns we use are influenced by our culture. For example, directness in speech is common in the US, however, indirectness is the rule in the parts of the Far East. Those people for both of this part of the world would probably express criticism of others differently. In parts of the Middle East, like Chacha said before, a host is expected to overfood several times, but in the US, the host may overfood only once or twice. Each language reflects and creates cultural attitude. Each has a unique way of expressing human need. And then we have nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication, as we know, is a way to show our feeling or person attitude that conveyed by words, while nonverbal communication is a way to show person's attitude that convey gestures, facial expression, eye contact, and conversational distance or space. And nonverbal communication expresses meaning or feeling without words, and universal emotions such as happiness, fear, and sadness are expressed in a similar nonverbal way throughout the world. Every country have different culture of showing their feeling or meaning in nonverbal communication. Every country have different meaning for a verbal communication. In one culture, polite behavior in that usual communication may be seen as unusual or impolite communication in another, but we can interpret nonverbal communication in another with looking for their gesture, facial expression, eye contact, and also space. So we can get the message which delivered by foreigners. And next we have kinds of nonverbal communication. As what I mentioned before, there are gesture, facial expression, eye contact, and also the use of speech that evoke communication. The first one is gesture. Gesture refers to the specific body movement that carry meaning. For example, hand can form shapes that convey many meanings. For example, like come here, go away, and it's okay, can be expressed non-verbally using only hands. People sometimes use these non-verbal movements to accompany or replace words. When traveling to another country, foreign visitors soon learn that not all gestures are universal. Gesture can include movement or motion of hands, head, face, and other parts of body. And for example, okay gesture in American culture is a symbol for money in Japan. I think that's all, and the next will be explained by Sofia.
And the next is facial expression. Facial expression carry meaning determined by context and relationship. In this case, there is, for example, the first one is smile, the second one is faint, the third one is raising the eyebrows, and then the fourth one is owing. The first one is smile. Smile, which is typically an expression of pleasure, but actually it has some function. For example, a woman smile at a policeman who is about to give her ticket does not carry the same meaning as the smile she gives to a young child. Maksudnya di sini, senyum seorang wanita pada seorang polisi yang tidak akan memberinya tiket atau bisa kita sebut surat tilang, itu tidak memiliki arti yang sama dengan senyum yang dia berikan kepada seorang anak kecil. Senyum wanita kepada polisi ini adalah senyum yang menggambarkan mungkin hanya senyum sekedar basa-basi. Bisa saja senyum tersebut untuk meminimalisir sanksi dari surat tilang tersebut. Sedangkan senyum kepada anak-anak itu menggambarkan senyum yang tulus kepada seorang anak yang lucu misalnya. Kemudian the second one is faint is conveyed by grimace, which is also signify disgust. So we can menyampaikan rasa sakit dengan meringis, atau kita juga bisa menyampaikan rasa jijik kita melalui meringis. Kemudian yang ketiga is raising the eyebrows. It's describes surprise, shock, disbelief. And then the fourth one is owing. Owing has many function. If it is given to a friend, may mean you and I have a secret, or I'm just kidding. And then if it is between a man and woman, it can be flirtatious atau menggoda. And then The degrees of facial expressiveness also varies among individual and culture. The fact that members of one culture do not express their emotion as openly as members of another does not mean they do not experience emotion. There are cultural restraints of the amount of nonverbal expressiveness permitted. Given individual differences, it is difficult to make generalization about a cultural style of communication. For example, Americans express themselves facially in varying degrees. People from certain ethnic background in the United States may use their hands, body, and face more than other Americans. And then there are no fixed rules, although it is considered negative or suspicious to have a defined expression or a poker face. But some people can be read like a book, others are difficult to read. And then the second one is eye contact. Eye contact is important because in suspicion or excessive eye contact may create communication barriers. It is important in relationship because it serves to show intimacy, attention, and influence. And then contohnya itu ada misalnya ada dua orang asing berjalan menuju satu sama lain. Biasanya kita melakukan kontak mata, tersenyum, dan mengatakan hai. Dan orang-orang asing itu dapat segera memalingkan muka dan lupa bahwa mereka mempunyai eye contact. Sehingga dalam konteks ini eye contact itu tidak berarti banyak. Namun eye contact ini sebagai cara untuk mengakui kehadiran orang lain. Dan dalam sebuah percakapan, kontak mata yang terlalu sedikit dapat dilihat secara negatif karena itu menunjukkan kurangnya minat, kurang perhatian, atau bahkan ketidakpercayaan. Dan ada suatu pepatah yang mengatakan, jangan pernah mempercayai orang lain yang tidak bisa menatap mata Anda. Yaitu mengartikan bahwa kontak mata itu penting dalam sebuah komunikasi. The next is space. The amount of space change depending on the interpersonal relationship. For example, we are usually more comfortable standing closer to the family member than to the stranger. And then personality also determines the size of space. For example, introvert prefer to interact with others at a greater distance than extrovert. And then cultural styles are important too. For example, like a Japanese employer and employee usually stand further apart while talking than their American counterparts. And then another example, like Latin Americans and Arab tends to stand closer together than American when talking. And then for American, distance in social conversation is about an arm's length to 4 feet. Less space in American culture may be associated with greater intimacy or aggressive behavior. And then the common practice of saying excuse me or pardon me for the slightest accidentally touching of another person reveals an American attitude about personal space. Thus, when person's space is intruded upon us by someone, he or she may feel threatened and react defensively. In culture where close physical contact is acceptable and desirable, American may be perceived as cold and distant. So, culture does not always determine the message that our body movement convey. Context, personality, and relationship also influence them. Therefore, no two people in any one society have the same nonverbal behavior. However, like verbal language, nonverbal communication cannot be completely separate by culture. Whether we emphasize the difference and similarity
the silence language is much louder than it first appears. So,
I think that's all from us. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.